There it is. So that this way, actually, I think the first question is going to be asked to you. You're not going to clip it on. You're going to pass it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Great. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Palestinian American Community Center. I am your host, Halima Tom, and I lead our civic engagement advocacy department here at the center, and which has honestly awarded me the great privilege of getting to know so many of you and so many of you. And it is my favorite part of my job is the people that I've got to connect with through this position. And I want to thank you all for joining us for our annual Palestine Week. This is a part of a series that we do every year. And for those of you who may be new to PAC, I see maybe a couple, we are more than just a building. We are a third space for many in our community. We are where families gather, where friendships are built, where culture is preserved, and where new generations find belonging and purpose. That's probably one of my favorite aspects. Throughout the year, PAC serves our community through children's programs, youth initiatives, student engagement, young adult programs. So for any parents who have kids who are between the age of 17 and 21, send them my way. We have really great internships here at PAC. We have women-centered events, healing and wellness spaces, Palestine education, community rentals to celebrate. We educate, we mourn, we organize. We have the greatest event of the year, in my opinion, Palestine Day and Palestine Way. And we just had a really great one this past month. And the PAC conference, which is how I found the center myself. So, and much, much more. And so this week has been an incredible week. We kicked off with 2 Palestinian flag raisings, one in Clifton and one in Patterson. These moments matter because we refuse to be erased. We refuse to be pressured into hiding our identity through racism, intimidation, or fear. And we raise our flag proudly because our community belongs here, because we are making real impacts. And we also hosted a screening at 36. If anyone has not seen that in this room, I could not recommend it more. I do believe that we will be screening it again. I think that one of the things that we do really well here is helping Palestinians connect to Palestinian historians and learning through the lens of our own identity. And this film really does a nice job with that as well. Tomorrow night is June 12th. We will be inviting everyone back for our first ever Bellad Mixer, which is basically going to be like a show and tell for all of our Bellads. Super exciting. So you can come, have a table, share artifacts, share memories of your village, of recipes, things that help you stand out. So it's going to be really fun, and I recommend that everybody come and join. Every time I come to another Friday night's event, I'm always super grateful that I did. And we will also conclude this week with a very special virtual event on Sunday that anyone can sign on to, called Voices from Palestine. It's a topic on land settlement in Jerusalem and in the West Bank. This lecture will explore new Israeli legislative changes and their impacts on Palestinians. It's a very important conversation, and I encourage everyone to register and attend and stay informed and grounded in our anchor to our cause. And tonight, we are honored to host a conversation on organizing and advocacy with our 4 extraordinary leaders whose work has helped move their communities forward in very meaningful ways. So round of applause for our panelists. Ibrahim Omar's journey demonstrates the power of local civic engagement. Ibrahim is a longtime activist and organizer who helped others in local campaigns before being appointed himself, and later was elected to the Patterson City Council himself. He has helped bring community voices into local government and has shown what is possible when organizers themselves become local decision makers by continuously helping us to build relationships and recognition. Arwa Ansor is an educator, a community leader, and public servant. She serves as a vice president of the Prospect Park of Board of Education, vice president of legislative affairs for Passaic County School Board Association, deputy municipal registrar for the, how do you say that? Registrar, so many R's, for the borough of Prospect Park. Arwa has been recognized in Marquise's Who's Who in America for her leadership and service, and reflects the importance of representation and education and the impact that engaged community members can have on shaping opportunities for future generations. Yes, thank you. And then we have Noreen Ekhatar. Akhtar, yes. Thank you. Noreen Akhtar has worked at every level of civic engagement for helping from helping elected Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and serving in her congressional office, to local advocacy in her own town that secured EID recognition for students in Livingston schools. She's also helped elect progressive leaders such as Ana Lilia Mejia, and has been a strong advocate for justice-oriented policies, including Palestinian rights. And Omema Mansour. Omema is our community as a community organizer, advocate. She has served on the Islamic Society at Central Jersey Board, the Noor UI Imam School Board, and the CARE New Jersey Board. She has helped lead efforts that resulted in a divestment of $5 million from Israeli bonds, presented before the State Investment Council, built relationships with elected officials across the state of New Jersey, and advocated for protections of free speech. She has worked alongside national leaders and organizations to elevate Palestinian and Muslim voices while strengthening relationships with state and federal elected offices. Her advocacy has been featured in multiple state and national publications. I think that deserves another round of applause. Thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you for all of the work and effort that you put into bettering the health of our communities and our society as a whole. And thank you for your services. So I wanted to start off today with a question to really ground us in the moment, because politics is personal and we really can't separate the two and act as if it doesn't have direct personal impacts on who we are. And I wanted each of you to begin with a memory that you, from what first moved you to action. The first time that you really, something clicked with you and you said, you know what, I need to do something, and what that was, and what continued to keep you engaged in this work years later. So we'll start with you.
Okay, well, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good evening. First, I want to thank the PAC for hosting this, and I want to thank Halima for inviting it. I have a bunch of memories, but I think the one that sticks out to me is December 2005. I was in sixth grade. I didn't plan on doing nothing that day, but sitting on someone's front porch and watching a parade. And I was approached by, at the time, two people who were not in office, right? Who are now in office, that I look up to, that I could say they are mentors. And they said, "Hey, you want to be in a parade?" And I just jumped up and said, "Yeah." And my job was very simple: to pass out flyers. And I know it sounds crazy when you started passing out flyers, but that was my job. I was to pass out flyers. And I could say that I saw the way people approached this individual, and he, he was well respected, and he got elected in April, that month, that following April. Um, that was my first fond memory. I could say that people, looked up to him. They wanted him to serve, and from there, I was like, I want to be somebody like them. So that's my first memory. That's the one memory that comes to me.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this panel. A memory that comes to mind is when is Muslim Ban 1.0. So I lived in Queens at the time. I grew up there. I lived there until 2018. And, when Donald Trump was elected, that was the first time since kind of the post 9/11 era that I felt like my family's future in this country was not guaranteed. It was the first time we started hearing about Muslim lists and bans and all these other things. And so the day he was elected, I was, preparing to open up a bakery. Actually, I was a baker in a former life. And so I very quickly shifted gears and just started thinking, what can I do? I cannot be a bystander to our democracy anymore. And I asked around to friends who were involved, and everyone said the same thing: get involved locally. And so that's what I did. My friends and I started a group called Muslims for Progress, where we figured we have all these get-togethers, we have all these events. Let's start just talking to our community about issues that matter and our elected officials. And then when the Muslim ban came down, I just remember not knowing what to do, but I just left the house and I went down to JFK and I just put my body on the line along with everyone else. And just, I didn't know where else to be or what else to do. So I just went there and just was part of that movement.
Very powerful. Thank you.
First and foremost, I want to thank Halima and PAC for having us here today. So honored to be sitting with this panel, and I probably shouldn't really be up here when we have people like Lakha and other magnificent people in the crowd that I'm sure have done far more work than myself. But Halima, you yourself are an extraordinary organizer, and PAC is so lucky to have you. So please give her a round of applause. She's amazing. Um, I've worked with Halima for the last 2 years, maybe even more, and I am a testament to how powerful she is. So I just wanted to first and foremost recognize you. My most powerful memory, and I'm sure many of you here, your most powerful memory would probably be October 7th, right? There is no single moment in my life where I was so shook to my core as seeing a live stream genocide on my phone every day. And that really prompted me to just drop everything, even my own children, unfortunately, and just get to the streets and see what we can do. But my very fond memory is, and Halima, you may remember this, the very first meeting we were able to get with Andy Kim when he was a congressman. And we were all trying so hard to figure out, I mean, none of us had ever stepped foot probably in our congressional offices. I probably saw Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman in my mosque, but, you know, because alhamdulillah, I'm from CD12, but I don't think I've ever really engaged at that level. But that moment required such urgency, and we had no choice. We had no choice. I think every living day and night we were working towards, you know, trying to liberate those people in Gaza. And I can tell you the first time in November, I'll remember it very clearly. I think the first week of November that we got an email back from then Congressman Andy Kim's office saying, yes, you can come. And we just we just ran. And from that moment on, the experiences and relationships that we've had in the congressional, and now alhamdulillah he's a senator, those offices have been so instrumental, inshallah we'll talk about it a little bit later, to forming some type of advocacy and power in our communities. So I would say definitely the genocide in Gaza is what really propelled me to take a whole different level of advocacy, and alhamdulillah, I'm grateful for that.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Halima, for the invite that you sent out to myself. I really appreciate this. I believe like this opens doors for myself, for others, and everyone else in the crowd. And I did like hearing everyone else's memory and backstory. It was really inspiring, from like the genocide to someone passing out papers to a New Yorker, you know, experiencing a Muslim ban. Mine is about food. You guys might be wondering why, but but I would say I had many, many memories. But the one that is really core, the minute that Halima did ask us the question, is about 6 years ago, literally 6 years ago, that was what, COVID-19. I just started this basic small initiative of just taking all the hot meals from all these Patterson businesses, Clifton businesses in Passaic County. I collected them, obviously, and I distributed them. I did a hot meal drive-through. So at the for Ramadan, I did in Ramadan because it was difficult for people to come out, you know, get food, take food, iftar. It was more geared for elderly senior citizens. So by the end of Ramadan, I distributed 8,000 meals. That initiative opened my door. I doubt my goal, my intention was not where I'm supposed to be here today. I promise you. But subhanAllah, that memory and that, I think I want to say stepping stone, was the biggest core memory where opened doors and pathways where months later I got a call saying that I was needed to be a vacancy for to be on the my town's board of education, and it was like a seat because a board of education can't be run without an empty seat. And that's where subhanallah, another great memory was I was sworn in 2 a.m. overseas online in order to fulfill that board. Yeah, that was one of the good memories. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that the common thread that I'm seeing here too is that nobody here, like, was it their educational ambition, or where everybody was just a person living their life who got inspired and decided to figure it out and how to get involved. And so that's, I think, really important to highlight, is that I know myself, similar journey. Like, I didn't go to school for this, and I didn't think that I was gonna do this for my career, but you get passionate, and then once you get that bug and you start to see it's the wins. I think that this job is like 80% rejection. I say it all the time. It's so much failure. It's a lot of defeat, but those wins, and we're gonna talk about some of that as well. It's really, really what keeps you tied to the work that we're doing. So this next question is going to be for everyone, and it's going to be centered around building power. Many people see successful campaigns and assume that victories happen overnight. Can each of you walk us through one campaign or victory you've been a part of and help us understand what it actually took behind the scenes in getting that win? How many people were involved? What were the key actions involved? What commitments had to be made? And who helped to make it possible? I'll start off with you.
I'll start. So, I guess you can say one campaign, obviously, besides my own campaign, but I've been a part of many, many campaigns. One campaign I do remember where I was, I guess you could say strongly, strongly involved was 2018 when we elected the first Arab mayor in the city of Patterson, and y- and you could say that we all worked hard. He's an individual who ran. I think that was his third time running. He was prior to him being elected, he was actually serving as my councilman, and we all worked really hard. I remember knocking on doors with him till like maybe 10 p.m. And then reaching out to the voters, understanding their needs. At that time, Patterson was going through a lot of turmoil, so it was more like, hey, we need the right person to continue to lead. The third largest city in the state of New Jersey. That's one of my memories, and then of course my own election. I could say my journey started right here in the pack. Halima will be able to tell you, but my journey myself, I would go out and knock on doors from like 3 p.m. to like 10 p.m. And I remember people were like, "Hey, I went ghost for such a long time," but definitely the 2018 where we elected the first Arab mayor in the city of Patterson.
So I can speak to 2018 and the work I did to help elect Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. And if you want to talk about timeline, I actually met her on this day 9 years ago at this small rally in Queens where she was not supposed to speak. My friend had organized it, and it was Ramadan, and it was 90 degrees. And she stood out there for 3 hours. And at the very end, she asked, "Can I speak?" And so the moderator let her speak, and she started talking about Medicare for all and abolishing ICE and all of this. And I was like, wow, no one else is saying these things. Like, she's great. We should invite her to our iftar. And, that was a full year and a half before her primary in June of 2018. And she needed to start that early because the incumbent was so well funded, was so well established that when you don't have that kind of money, what you have to use is time. And so I think Umaima may speak about this with Dr. Hamawi's campaign, but you really need that time to build up like a foundation of support within the community you're trying to represent. And so she spent that whole summer knocking on independents' doors, trying to get them to change their affiliation to Democrat so they can vote in the primary in the next year, because New York is a closed primary state. And then in February of 2018, we reconnected again at a house party, and she was like, "I need help getting on the ballot." I was like, "Great, I have some aunties in Jackson Heights. I can get them to sign your petitions." 5 days later, I get an email from her field director saying, "Congratulations, you're the Jackson Heights field captain." I'm like, what does that mean? And so basically meant over the course of 5 weeks during the petitioning period, I had to execute at least 3 events a week where I trained volunteers on how to collect petition signatures. First, I had to get trained on that myself, and then send them out, collect their signatures afterwards, and then turn it into the campaign. So I did that for 5 weeks in freezing cold temperatures on street corners in Jackson Heights, where a lot of Muslim voters wouldn't want to talk to me because I would ask them, "Hey, are you a Democrat?" And they'd be like, "Why do you want to know?" Because of our history of surveillance in this country. And so, that was petitioning. Alhamdulillah, we got her on the ballot. And then after that, it was like, okay, time to knock doors. I was like, what is that? And so I had to knock doors for the first time and phone bank. And, we did that for a period of 3 months, and we did the impossible, which was beat a like 10-term incumbent.
I remember that race. It was insane. Thank you.
So I think this question is going to be very easy for me because I am in CD12. I was on Dr. Hamoui's campaign team. So we're fresh off of the campaign trail right now, just taking a little break. So um, I think this was the most insane experience I've ever been part of, being part of a campaign team trying to elect the very first Muslim congressman in New Jersey, for probably the first Egyptian congressman in the nation. And I can tell you that our community was very new to this, very raw to this. Our community is still very politically immature. So there were a lot of challenges that we dealt with internally, a lot of back and forth that we wasted, unfortunately, talking about time, internally, that I hope, inshallah, that we can build on in future weeks and months and educate our community on how to do this right for the next go around. Alhamdulillah, I think it took an army to deliver the first Muslim congressman here in New Jersey. Inshallah, Ya Rab, he will, Egyptian. No, it's okay. His wife's Palestinian. So inshallah, like in November, he will be able to go against the incumbent, the Republican, who will not have that much support because we are a D+13 district. But I can tell you that the most important thing I saw in our district was the Muslim community and the Arab community being able to believe in themselves and believe that they can deliver this person as their congressman. Without that belief, then there would have been no hope. And unfortunately, I think there's probably a question coming up about what our communities lack in terms of mobility and organizing. It's really a belief that we are talented, that we are the people that can deliver this. There's nothing different from us, from other communities, but except for the belief in your heart that you can do this. And alhamdulillah, we outraised money from any other of the 12 candidates that we were running against. We raised $1.5 million. The campaign did, and then there was $2 million that were raised independently for his ads, which completely propelled him from 2% to like 39% in the last polling. Beyond that, we were out organizing them. The machine politics of CD12 could not keep up with this huge rally of not only Muslims, but all of our allies came behind us. The Hispanic community, the Black community, et cetera, the immigrant community, the normal white community, was just abandoning their candidates and coming behind Dr. Hamoui. Now, he is a person who has an impeccable biography, in his own right. So obviously this was easier to deliver than anybody, like any Joe Schmo. However, I think what really was very profound in the first 48 hours was the ability to get $250,000 and propel to first place in terms of funding. And from then on, our community was just pouring in money. 90% of funds came from within New Jersey. So if you want to say that New Jersey does not have the money to support our candidates, it does. Our pockets are deep, particularly where I come from, which is CD12. Like I came all the way from Princeton today. So this is where we are. And we can have this playbook for many, many years, inshallah. He's the first of many. And I think that we just have to make sure that we believe in ourselves. We have the correct people in the room, the players in the room to make this difference. And inshallah, we can see a broad number of congressional leaders supporting our community in the future, inshallah.
When you say army, can you give me a number of people or about
Oh.
a roundabout number of how many people were involved in the campaign?
Yeah, I mean, so our direct staff was just 5 or 6 people, like the direct people who were, paid or whatever. But then you look at, we had, I want to say our district has probably over 50,000, Muslims, and I mean, not all of them were registered, of course. Like I think we only had like 12 or 13,000 that were registered Dems, but every masjid delivered so much. We had buses going to the polling locations on Jummah and early voting. We had buses on Eid Day that I had coordinated to go and to bring people to vote, right? We had every Jummah, I took Dr. Hamoui to a different masjid. We had 17 or 18 masajid, including the Shia and other, different denominations, So every night in Taraweeh, we forget that Ramadan fell in the middle of this campaign. So, and I'll talk about this later, is the power of our community, that every night in Taraweeh, Noreen was talking about the petitions. we saw other candidates suffering in terms of getting petition signatures. You only needed 500. We surpassed that goal by 5 times. We had 2,500 signatures. And you know why? Because I just stood outside every Tarawih. You had thousands of people walking out. You know, every Jummah, we stood outside. Here, sign this, Dr. Hamawi, first Muslim congressman. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, president. No, not president, congressman. You know, uncle, you know, has so confused, you know, but people were excited and people delivered. We went to the division of elections with this huge you know, people know in Arabic we say desta, you know, of petitions. And they were like, what is this? We're like, oh, our petitions. They're like, and all the rest of the candidates standing there in line were like, dang, how'd you guys get all these petition signatures? I'm like, our community, you know, and they were, mashallah, majority Muslim. So we have to take advantage of our numbers. We are failing to recognize how in New Jersey, I think, Halima, we said what, 350,000 Muslims or more in the state of New Jersey, right?
The census, yeah, it's definitely more.
I mean, we're such a powerful community, not only in numbers, but in money and in education, intellect. We have to start believing in ourselves and take this to different levels. So yeah, this was a huge learning experience, and inshallah for many more years to come, inshallah.
Halima, can you just repeat the question, please? No, the stories were so good.
The question is about successful campaigns
Okay.
and a win that or a victory that maybe you've had and how you got there and what were the the steps that were taken to help
Okay.
achieve that victory that you referred to.
Okay, so this is gonna be way probably this my answer is gonna be a campaign that I was involved in Jordan. On you guys, it might sound a little bit weird or off, but it was actually my own uncle. He ran for governor for, let's say, I want to compare it to like a governor here, like a state. That's how they're kind of split up. I was involved in his campaign in 2016 and in 2017, when I saw like there's actually like turnovers and rejections from within the Muslim and Arabs ourselves, like within the actual the village, the town, the area, the government, and everything. That's when when I came back here, a few years later, I was on the campaign for Khairallah. Mayor Khairallah, he's the first Muslim Syrian elected mayor in the state of New Jersey. He just won in the primaries like a week, 2 weeks ago, and we're probably, I want to say, the smallest town in New Jersey. Our population does not exceed 7,000. So I'm gonna go from like Dr. Hamawi's campaign to something as small as that, where we lost the number. You would be surprised where actually very, very little, the Muslims, the Arabs did not come out. And that was a shock. That was a big shock where unfortunately we saw that not as a loss, but a victory. So we had to like turn on another page and go to who? We had to go to the whites, the blacks, the Hispanics, the colored, all ethnicities, all religions, all backgrounds that they had to come out, they had to show up. Not to say that we neglected our own people as well, but why? That's where the next step that we're gonna actually do after the campaign. And why are they actually not coming out for a Muslim Arab mayor in the town, a small town where you would think, oh, okay, yeah, it's easy to get a number like that, but you would be so shocked as to what we learned that like an actual councilman from the council ran against us, and he had his own people, our own people, turn and get like manipulated, brainwashed, ads. We spent a lot, I want to say, on that. But alhamdulillah, I think with the will of Allah, and we spent countless of hours and we spent as much time. We did win the campaign and we learned a lot. And but not to say that we're stopping here, because now the big question is like why? Now our own people stopped trusting in us. Our own, the Muslims, the Arabs, not to say that own specific type of ethnicity and background. Why did they stop? Why they stopped like kind of losing hope? We are big in number. We're huge in number. We'll come to say the data and census. It's insanely a lot, but they're just hidden. They're putting everything to sleep. So that's when we question as to like the big question mark as to what it is that's actually being happening, that's not like actually having a light bulb on top of their head. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that that's something that we're definitely going to keep continuing to dig into further. And I also want to make sure that I mention that PAC is a 501c3, so there's nothing that is being said today is any kind of formal endorsement. And we also don't live in a monolith. And I do think it's incredibly important that we are engaging all communities, because I think at the end of the day, Muslim Arab issues are not just Muslim Arab issues. They're issues that affect all communities. A lot of it's a shared struggle, like as you mentioned with AOC and the Medicare for all, and how that was something that you like nobody was talking about the same thing that she was talking about, and ICE out, and we're seeing that today now, and I think that's why Hemingway was so translatable to so many different communities as well, is because he was talking about equity, he was talking about and he came in with a very real and clear message. So and talking about relational organizing and how important it is to relational organize, tapping into your family, and how you were just given a role as a volunteer lead. You're like, okay, I'm gonna figure I've never knocked a door. I'm gonna knock a door, and I'm gonna hold events and bringing out people for Tarawih. Like all of these things are all at our disposal. And the idea is to become educated enough that we are able to tap into what's already there. So I hope that message comes across with everything that was said here, is that the community is here, it exists, we are connected, we are very connected. Now it's just a matter of that belief, the belief that we can, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation, is because we are having wins, we are having successes. And I think that the more that people realize that we are having these wins, the more they'll feel encouraged to be vulnerable and knock on a door and make a phone call and push their family. I mean, oh God, my family's watching, some of them right now, and they will tell you I am the most annoying person on the planet. I terrorize them. I show them the receipts of, okay, I'm looking at everybody. Did you vote? I can see on State Voices if you did or you didn't. So yeah, it's a lot of belief in relational organizing. So thank you for that, for answering that question so wonderfully. The next question I'm actually gonna go ahead. I'm gonna ask, if you can pass this to Arwa, I'm gonna ask you directly.
Okay.
Yeah. So Arwa, you wear many hats, and one challenge many community members face is that people want change but often don't know where to start. What are some of the ways that we can make organizing and advocacy more accessible for everyday community members who may be busy and intimidated about this whole process, or are unsure about where they fit in? And then after my answers, anyone can feel free to chime in to that question as well.
Okay. That was like 3 questions in one. That was a lot. What are the ways? Okay. I do want to say what are the ways are just being available, being humble, being real, being there. I think nowadays, I think we all connected, we all tied into one aspect that you mentioned is belief. Like people, I think, are tired now. They actually do want to see belief. Like actions speak louder than words. Just because someone is on the screen and like is so good at talking and public speaking, like, all right, they're the best person for that spot, but no. When I actually like um I got this position where I am today, I did see that people really vote, really, they really vote for who you truly are. They would really follow up with you, trust you, give you all the support, all the words, all the posts. But actually, if you're true to your word, that's when honestly it starts very local, then you get county, then you get state, where you show up. You show up. The people they want to feel like they're heard, that they're being answered, that they're actually being changed. I do, not just I want to say for our types of communities, like what you mentioned, Halima, all communities, because it all ties into each other. Like now, how healthcare in New York and Dr. Hamawi in Patterson, if you think about it, it all ties in all together because it's a huge. I think it touches tri-state area nationally, where it hit like everywhere. It hit international, nationwide, as well. Where that people, like, they're just not nowadays. Again, that I want to reiterate that now just putting anyone on the stand is so easy now. Funding so easy, ads so easy, but now like they do something, they go against it, they say something. That's where now just being a very, I want to say, down to earth, humble, and available type of person, no matter your race, your religion, your background, just being there for who you are, pretty much.
Thank you. Yeah, I think availability is huge, and making yourself available. finding the time. Yeah,
Right,
prioritizing your time, and I think is a huge part of success, because if you where you spend your time and where you spend your money is what speaks to your values.
It shows.
I think, just to add on, culturally, we've always kind of felt that we don't want to be part of a political system. We don't want to advocate. I remember when I was a younger girl, my parents were like, just keep your mouth shut. Coming from Arab countries, we are ruled by dictatorship regimes. That's no secret. And so when our parents came to this country, we were kind of told to stay quiet. So this generation, especially after October 7th, seeing the encampments and seeing the students say we are not going to be silent in the face of oppression was really very enlightening for me personally. And I think that what encourages folks to organize, and I think Halima, you do this best, and I'm going to go back to an incident that happened in the State House where we had to fight against the IRA bill. When folks come together in a space and fight towards a common goal, they feel more encouraged. I wouldn't encourage anybody to go outside of Cory Booker's office right now and say, free, free Palestine, or you're a genocide enabler. I wouldn't. But when you come together in numbers, when you come together as 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 people, I don't know how many buses, Halima, you took out to the IRA test, when we went to the State House, but that was the most amazing. I mean, this question really speaks to you and your work because this was the most amazing mobilization of a community I've ever seen. And I don't think any of those people could have singularly went to the State House on their own, with the broken English and with the, lack of confidence of, the tons who came forward and spoke, reading from the card that she had prepared, right? And that you guys had prepared for these speakers to come forward. But when you gathered them all together and they had that confidence and that spirit, that's the only way we can mobilize. And we have the numbers. Again, I don't want you guys to feel shy about stepping forward. We're probably the only community that has this amount of people that gather on a regular basis. So take advantage of it. When we walked in, I think it was like 250 testimonies that day in IRA versus what, like 10 of, I don't know how many the Zionists had. Yeah, the first time when they were like, oh,
There were 25 in favor of, and I think that it ended up being, we had like at least 250.
at least 250 that day. And that was because of PAC and the work that you guys did here and the way you mobilized those folks to come out. I think Amr Rabia's family was there maybe the second time as well. And I think that is the most prime example of organizing and not going anywhere alone. So more of that. I think more of that type of action and bringing people together. I personally would never do anything alone. I'm a very big people person. I like to socialize, like to be around people. Get the people together, mobilize towards one goal, and inshallah, success will be near,
I
inshallah.
think the missing link to that point is, I think the missing link is the awareness of consistency.
Yeah.
Is that you can't show up once or twice and expect that it's going to make make the impact that you want it to make. Is that, and I say that, and that should be my phrase. I say this all the time. Is that it's health. Any type of health. Any type of health that you're working towards is a consistent and regular effort. It's political health. I always say spiritual health, mental health, physical health, financial health, and political health. If we can get those 5 things down, and we can incorporate that into our life, then we can see a changed world.
I do want to add on to what Omema said, because what you said is very, very true. But something we also do have to realize is just like how now CD12, God willing, in November, they're going to have Dr. Hamawi, right, in the 35th district, and someone who used to serve me on the Patterson City Council was, believe it or not, he was the first Palestinian to get elected in the city council and the first in the state assembly. And he was our voice for the IRA bill. I remember every time me speaking to him, and not when I say our voice on the assembly. And it's important to have a representative that's, going to speak for you, because we can go and speak and testify in front of the committee in Trenton as much as we want. But if we don't have people in those seats fighting for us, then our voices fall on deaf ears. So, I think it all comes together, but I just wanted to add that.
Not just speak for you, but speak to you.
Speak to you, correct?
Have people in office like Anna Lilia,
Right.
and even like Katie Brennan in Jersey City,
Bali, right? Yeah.
and Kenyatta, and having people who are actually willing to connect and engage and learn from your community. So that's why it's important that we don't always play, identity politics is one thing, but actually choosing candidates who will align with us, work with us, speak to us, engage with us. And that happens by showing up as a whole number, It shows, it happens as showing up as a community. It happens as showing up not as an individual, but as a group, as you mentioned. So, yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Uh, no, I mean, I think Umayma summed it up. It's just like you got to talk to people. Like the way we got Eid holiday passed in Livingston was I was at a dinner party and some other moms were complaining about how they have to figure out like accommodations for the kids around Eid and why don't we have it off? And that's how it started. And so, this social, organizing that you do is just as important as the political organizing. They go hand in hand. When you build up that social capital, you can mobilize them in times of action. And so just keep on talking to people, talk to new people all the time.
So actually, you mentioned Eid. So I'm gonna jump to this question that I have for you. Organizing around your children's school, which I think is huge because it's like it's one thing to be an organizer and to work in this industry. It's a whole other thing to be an organizer and to also organize your own community.
Right.
And it's not easy. And it is spreading yourself incredibly thin. So you balance advocacy work professionally on a very intense level while also advocating for your own children in your school. How have those experiences informed one another? And what advice would you give to parents who want to create change in their schools but don't know where to start?
I'll start with the first question. Can you repeat the first one?
Yeah, you balance. How do you balance? How did you balance working professionally and in advocacy and in the legislator or I guess Congress and your own children's school?
Well, first off, all my group chats are muted. And so I I only I when I have the mental bandwidth to address certain issues, I will go in there and I will catch up on everything and address things on my time. So that's how I balance it. And then I think one of the most shocking things or learnings for me was just how similar organizing members of Congress are as organizing members of your school board. It is very, very similar in terms of, organizers have this fancy language around power mapping and, scoring votes and whatever. It's all the same, whether you're talking about very, very powerful people or people with a little bit of power. You want something done. If that something needs votes, how do you get those votes? Yeah. And so when we decided that we wanted to lobby the school board to pass Eid holiday, they weren't responding to our numbers because we are a minority in Livingston. And so they weren't going to respond to that. And so what did we do? We met with individual school board members, engaged where they were at. And it push came to shove during a school board meeting where I posed a question directly to the superintendent. Can you please give us this holiday off? And it was actually one of the Jewish school board members who I sat down with a week before and made the case. And she was like, maybe we can take this off for this professional development and, accommodate it in the next calendar. And he said yes.
And ever since it's been,
Yeah.
wow.
That's it. Thank you. Yeah, it's really important to show how you can make real impacts by having direct conversations and there's more than one way to get to the solution. So you said I don't have the people power, but what I can do is I can connect one-on-one and see where the power is at and how we can change those minds. And it is part of in persuasion. You said for having conversations, it's like most of what we're able to accomplish is not going to be done through a text box and a message and a group message. And it's all going to involve direct conversations. So thank you. And then so I'll go to Ibrahim and then we'll and then I'll ask the next question to Amima. But many people feel very overwhelmed by politics, international events, and local challenges. So how do you respond when someone says nothing will change anyway? And what have you learned about turning frustration into action?
Well, I hear that a lot. And honestly, like, I understand where it comes from, but people see problems that have existed for years, nothing changes. But the reality is, and my response is always going to be the same for this, change doesn't happen at once, right? I mean, just because you voted, I use an example as Mamdani, right, in New York, just because you voted for Mamdani and everything that he's promised, he can't promise it on the first day of his office. So it's about continuing that and going, like, continuing to stay engaged. I could tell you, somebody like me, myself, one of the things that, I champion is quality life. I can call the police 1,000 times, doesn't mean they're going to listen. You have to find solutions. So I think it's not giving up and also, you know, grow on it because every single little effort, it's going to matter at the end, whether it's something so minuscule as making a phone call or a text message. I can give the best example, like what you just said about, emails and texts, whatever. I remember there was an individual who's here. Um, I got over, I think we counted up to like 11,000 emails of for an individual who lives in the city of Patterson who was incarcerated, unfortunately. And it got to the point where it's like, wow, these emails are not stopping. And I think that matters. So every single little effort of that email, right? I might have known her name. My 8 colleagues didn't know her name. Now they do. So every little effort adds up at the end, in my opinion. And that's what I have to say. Every little effort adds up at the end. And I think no matter how minuscule that effort is, you just have to keep going because nothing's going to change overnight. Nothing's going to change just because you voted for one individual to get something done. No, that individual now needs to craft a plan and needs to lobby support because at the end of the day, every elected official is just one vote. And whether it's a commissioner's board, the state assembly, or the council or board of education, you need the majority support. So
Yeah, and you don't always
you don't
see
give
it
up
right
on.
away.
Yeah, you don't see it right away.
And sometimes failure is a part of winning. I
Right.
think you mentioned that earlier too as well. But yeah, you don't want to see it right away what your 2 minute, 1 minute, 5 minute action may be. It is in mass is a day full of emails in somebody's inboxes that they don't see the end of.
Right.
So I think that's a really important thing to highlight and to note. So thank you. So you took the mic, so
Oh, no, no,
Oh,
I didn't have
sorry.
anything that. No.
if anyone wants to add to that, feel free. Okay. And then also, I actually wanted to touch on something else you just said because we talked about this in the National Network of Arab American Communities. Shout out to NAC. But one of the things that they said about combating apathy is that remembering that it was the Black Panther movement that helped fight for civil rights, who, and getting school lunches and school
Right,
breakfast
right.
into our schools nationally. They said it was the most dangerous program. Is that the rights that we have today, that we're fighting for rights
Mm-hmm.
that will provide rights for future generations. We're not really fighting for the rights of us today and in this moment and the immediate. And I think that's where a lot of people get defeated is we believe that we're fighting for our rights.
Right.
And we are, but truly what we're doing is we're fighting for future generations. Because everything that we have is something that other groups, other minority groups too, have fought for. So I think it's really important to make sure that resonates with people and that they understand that.
And I can definitely add to that. In 2018, the city of Patterson, the Board of Education, they applied for grant money to get halal lunches. And some people might think, oh, that conversation started in 2018. It didn't start in 2018. It started, I don't actually know who started that conversation, but it started well before it. And it took years for the board to understand that, hey, you know what? We have a large Muslim population. Some of them are extremely religious that aren't eating lunches. And, we want our children to be able to succeed in school. So they need to have lunch. If they're not fasting, then you should go eat lunch. And it took a while, but I can say now all Patterson Public Schools serve halal lunches. They have that option. And the person who started it may not even, he may not even be in school. He might not even had a child in school, but he was persistent. He or she was persistent, and it came to reality in 2018. So over the times of years, and I look at other messages as well, whether it's like the progressive movement from Mamdani, where like now Hamawi's taking a little bit of that angle, or AOC. It's a continuous effort. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it all builds off each other. So my next question is usually to Omema. As a Muslim Arab woman, you've chosen to serve on multiple boards and organizations, and in a very fast amount of time. I want to know why it was important for you to be a board member in these spaces, and what does it actually mean? I think that's something that we need to really demystify
Mm.
is what it means to be a board member or to sit on a committee. Like, I think immediately we always think that, oh, this is going to take up, it's going to be a full-time job.
Mm.
And I think, you can make it a full-time job if you're on like 7 different boards. But if you can demystify the process a little bit and talk about why you felt like that was so important and in the spaces that you chose to be in.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. So I'll start off by saying that I started on the board of Islamic Center of Central Jersey, which is down in Monmouth Junction. Many of you are familiar with Imam Hamid Shibli. That is my masjid that I live closest to. And I actually was on the board of overseers when I was in college. So this is a space, very few masajid allow women to even serve on their boards. So first and foremost, I think that was very important for me that because of the fact that they were allowing a young woman to serve in that capacity, it was incredibly important for me to take that space and to excel at it because I'm paving the way for many, many more young women who served after me. Our board is actually elected every year. So alhamdulillah, it's not like, many other societies where unfortunately there's no elections and people stay forever and ever and ever. We do have elections every year. There are 2-year and 3-year terms. I am once again running this year for re-election, inshallah. I think we're going to have elections, inshallah, soon in July. And it's just been an honor to learn so much from people who have even come before me in that space, my parents and their friends, et cetera. Now, being on a board, and I also served on the board of KRC3 and also on the board of Norley Men's School, which is the full-time school there. You have a fiduciary responsibility. Once you're on the board, you have a fiscal responsibility, you have oversight, and you learn so much from going to different type of trainings that are from the state in terms of how to best manage an organization, right? Fiscal responsibility, management, people management, et cetera, et cetera. And I would really encourage every masjid to have their board attend professional services, professional training, because we cannot excel in this country without being able to have a solid board. And I'm not talking about 2 uncles running an entire masjid. I'm talking about, like, mashallah, we have 10 board members and they're very diverse, and we always make sure they're very diverse. So I think that we are probably the most progressive of masajid. We have a constitution that we go by. We have bylaws. We have a very strict structure. And I think that so many other organizations are now looking to that structure to be able to build their own because of just so many legal problems they're having with the Trump administration currently, right? We can't take away from the fact that Trump is going after our nonprofits and after our masajid and trying to shut them down. So from a very young age, I was involved. I still feel it's important for Muslim Arab women to be there because our perspective as people who raise households and as mothers of tribes, we say in our back home, right? To be there and to be able to tell that perspective to a lot of men who don't understand what it's like to be in an area that's enclosed without proper sanitation or ventilation or what have you in the masjid, without programming for women, without programming for women who come maybe from divorce situation or abuse situation or what have you. So it's very eye-opening to have the female perspective. And this is something that, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ always gave us. This is our right. And I think that it's really incumbent upon us to protect the rights of women. That in his farewell speech, that was his wasiyah, to take care of the woman. And for far too long in so many of our communities, we don't do that. And so I was actually very honored to be able to serve on these boards and to protect the space of the woman and to be able to give us a voice, So I hope it continues. It's, sometimes unfortunately year by year is like shrinking, like there's only 2 women and then there's like 4 women, but we're trying to push more of us. A lot of us are also scared to serve in those spaces, I mean, like I see it. I try to encourage people. They're like, they won't listen to me. What's the point? But you have to think about the perspective you're giving to the community to be able to serve you and your needs and your fellow women, the fellow sisters in the masjid. So, I hope inshallah I can continue that work, but it's tiring.
Yeah, I think that fear is a major barrier for a lot of people when it comes to stepping into these spaces, regardless of what the identifying factor is. Like you could be somebody who is more liberal and then in a town that's more conservative and
Mhm.
intimidated about joining a board in a conservative district because you're afraid of what that does to your social dynamics. It could be you are you are Palestinian and you want to join an environmental board, but you know
Mhm.
that environmental organization somehow welcomes war, which doesn't
Mhm.
really quite add up. And you want to give that perspective, but you're afraid to join that space because you'll feel outnumbered. But what I'm hearing you say is you need to take up the space.
Definitely.
You need to take that seat. You need to be that voice in that space, because at the end of the day, that perspective needs to be said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you so much for
Mhm.
sharing that.
How's that?
And then anything else that you add to that, feel free, but we'll go to the next question if not. Okay. So this is going to be for everyone. Sustainable organizing.
Sorry.
uh, we we often talk about mobilization during moments of crisis. So, but how do we build sustainable movements that last beyond a single election, a single protest, a single news cycle, and what does healthy long-term organizing look at? Like, how do we avoid burnout? How do we continue to fight the fight?
Okay, I'll start. So I don't have a perfect answer for that because I could tell you that a lot of people do get into it and they get burned out, and you can't blame them. And sometimes it's hard, right? I mean, I could speak about it from the campaign aspect. One thing I could say for me, I actually I love it. I enjoy it. I enjoy knocking on doors. I enjoy hearing people, listening to their concerns and then seeing if I could do something about it. Um, I think it's important to get people engaged. One thing I could say for me was the way I got engaged and the way I got involved was I always knew that there would be, a seat for me at the table. I always say there's a seat for me at the table. Alhamdulillah, it came to reality last year. But the reality is sometimes there won't be a seat for you at the table. But doesn't mean you can't make your own table, right? You can't doesn't mean you can't pull up an extra chair. It doesn't mean that you stop. Certain people, the first time they run, they lose. It's common, but they never give up. And as long as they never give up, it shows to people. I can use an example as a I'll use Mayor Andre Sayer as an example, right? The man ran for mayor 2 times before he won the third time. And a lot of people said, well, this is your third time running. What makes you think you're going to win this time? Well, his message resonated. People saw that he was eager to work. And I could use that example for many elected officials. Mayor Mohammed Khairallah, he started as a volunteer firefighter. Then he became a councilman, and then he was appointed and then elected, I believe, right, to become the mayor. So, people of Prospect Park, people of Patterson, they saw that there's an individual or individuals that want to continue to serve and they want to continue to serve the people. Now, the burnout part, that's a little bit tougher because you have to grow. You have to grow a movement, right? For me, alhamdulillah, I could say that because we have somebody like young, like Ala Abdel Aziz, who ran and was successful, and he became the first this and the first that. That other people were like, well, I could do that, or I want to step up and I want to help out. Let me know how I could do. And there's many ways. There's many ways, but I think the way to balance it all out is to treat everybody with fairness and respect. Well, it doesn't matter if they're Palestinian or African American or Caucasian, as long as I gotta say it this way, as long as we all share the same values, we want to work towards that same goal. So I think that's the way to do it. Another example I could use, Dr. Hamawi. He had the most volunteers, right? Anna Lilia Mejia. Anna Lilia Mejia didn't raise that much money, but she had a lot of volunteers. She had a really strong ground operation. People believed in her message, and she actually had to run 3 times in less than 6 months. Her first special primary, her first special general election, and she just came off a primary. You know, it's hard to imagine that everybody that worked in her campaign was the same people. No, she continued to grow, and she continued to grow her message and her team, and that's what lacks in our community. But alhamdulillah, I see changes. Um, if you ask me, I'll take Prospect Park, for example. I've never been involved in other elections besides municipalities of Patterson or outside Passaic County. But when I went to Prospect Park election day, I said, wow, people are engaged, multiple communities, not just the Syrian or Palestinian, the Bengali, African American, Hispanic. They were all engaged, whether they were on this side or that side. So I think it's treating people with fairness and respect, and then continuing to go and, resonate a message.
Thank you. No, yeah, that is a question for everyone, but yeah, no movement is possible without a strong volunteer base. I say all the time that is literally the signifier of the health of any community, any campaign is a large volunteer base.
For me, it was learning how to say no. So a lot of people throw themselves at this work, they're very passionate. They want to do all the things. They want to fight all the fights at all the same time. And that is just a recipe for burnout. But if you are strategic, if you strategically define your scope and what fight you're willing to or want to, or what change you want to enact, that allows you to be more effective. So one example of that is when I started Bangladeshi Americans for Political Progress over in New York. We were like, okay, we know we're Bangladeshi, we know we're progressive, but New York City is a big city and we're not like a huge group. We've got a couple of dozen people. So how can we be strategic in how we can navigate all these political races? And so what we define for ourselves is like, okay, where are the Bangladeshi hotspots in the city? Which one of those at any given election cycle is there progressive running to represent that area? If so, we will jump in and mobilize our people to help in those races. So that's one way that we were able to stay strategic. Same thing with working for Congresswoman AOC. Once you have that amount of power, everyone wants you to use your platform for their causes, for their, everything. But when you are strategic about the fights that you weigh in on, you can be more effective, like the Amazon fight in Queens and stopping that HQ2. So yeah, I don't want to go on, but it's basically being able to say no.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
It's hard to say no.
Especially for us. Yeah, it's true.
I think it's a really good question because I know we've experienced some of this burnout, recently, right? After how many years of going out there fighting against the genocide, I think our communities have felt that real burnout. But I think there's two things, and one of it is actually a prophetic example of being consistent, fil amal. The more consistent you are in your actions, the more you will have that type of success. And I think it's just consistency and being able, and I think Halima, you talked about this before, meet the community consistently and being able to bring them together. Also celebrating our victories. We're not very good at that. We're not good at putting ourselves on a pedestal and celebrating our own victories. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why we're so humble. I love parties. I love to celebrate our wins, but it's always like, oh, no, but we don't know yet. And I remember we had an example of during Break the Bonds where we were kind of cautious about not celebrating our victory just yet because of the Zionists, this and that, but we must celebrate our victories. Like we must get out there and do our debka and show the world that we're happy that we elected a Muslim congressman, that we did A, B, and C. I'll tell you something. Last primary, our district, CD12, where we just elected Dr. Hamawi, only had 538 Muslims who went out to vote. Right now, our numbers are close to 6,000 and going up because we don't yet have the official statement, So, this is immense. And if that's not enough for us to believe in ourselves, we're surpassing what they're saying is the minimal. 30% of any community would ever go out for a primary, right? We're surpassing that. We're trying to show them we'll reach, inshallah, 50%. For general election, we have a huge goal of bringing out, inshallah, maybe 70% of the Muslim community out there to show our numbers and to show that we're serious. And I'm telling you, the Zionists right now are analyzing this data and saying, holy moly, they all registered as Democrats. They all switched their affiliation. They were unaffiliated. They went to be Democrats. They all voted for this man. And not only that, they got 20,000 other community members in that district to vote for him. So what's going on, And we can't be scared of all the anti-Muslim rhetoric. We can't be scared of all the anti-Arab rhetoric. They're accusing him now of being, the World Trade Center bomber, Sheikh Ahmad Rahman, yada, 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 great. They don't know what else to do because nothing else is sticking, right? So we can't be scared of our shadow. We can't be scared. We have to just keep moving forward. I don't know if anybody saw yesterday, Donald Trump even commented about Dr. Hamawi. saying, oh, well, this guy, he's no good. You know, this guy's the one who bombed the World Trade Center. He's horrible. He's terrible. Yeah, like we have to get rid of, like, you know, the same old garbage over and over. And so you know that you're successful when somebody like him is commenting about you on World News Tonight. You know you have reached that level of irritating them and of power. And that's what we want to replicate, inshallah, with Daria Lisa, with Claire, with everybody across the nation, because one congressman himself cannot make the difference, but you vote for 12, 19, and one, yeah, you need a whole team. And so I would encourage folks, even though New Jersey is over in terms of our primary races, keep supporting those races, keep canvassing for those races in New York and whatever other states that we can, you know, access. Do the phone banking for whoever, because we need a whole cohort of new pro-Palestinian congressmen and women to make the difference. So believing in ourselves, celebrating our victories, and being consistent, inshallah, will get us there.
That's a very good question, Harim. I do want to say everyone though did mention something that was gonna be part of my answer, but I do want to say that for the burnout, I think I'm gonna say you want to turn the tables over and give the people the chance to actually like now orchestrate like now do these campaigns, you know, come out, let's say do these community events, mobilize these elections, mobilize these let's say whatever it is that they want to do for the town, the state, regardless of whatever, because obviously at the end of the day they're going to ask like when is enough. Just like how we're tired, you know, we have a burnout as we should. They do as well. Like I'm not expecting everyone to be, you know, to be there available 24/7. Of course not. But also showing up, you know, showing up. No, don't be okay. The burnout was not just say for the specific time period for primary. I got you. That's it. Now bye. It's a good summer break. Cause that's how it is. You know, you're out for the primary. We got your vote. We got you out. You volunteer. Even your volunteer or not, and then you say, okay, general election, the spot is secured, person is secured, all right, but then now what? You don't want to have that momentum die, because that's what happens. You know, we don't celebrate these victories. We don't go out. We don't have someone sit and, you know, grab a chair. Okay, here, you know, join this table. But why not? You know, how come? That's why I want to say we got where the not, I don't want to label it as Arabs now, but where the Muslims are here now today, because it's in our hands. It's on our fingertips. So we have this momentum that, you know, it's like a bar graph, up and down, constantly. You know, without this genocide, I don't think any of these, you know, specific people would be in these specific spots today. Why not? With or without it, we should be able to, you know, celebrate these victories nationwide or across the state or not or whatever. But it has to be like an ongoing trend. No, there should be no burnout. Why is there a burnout? Now ask yourself that why. You know, sit back and reflect that.
Yeah, I think, you know, tapping in and tapping out is really important, and but making sure you tap back in. Right? I think that's the important piece is people they tap out and then they stay tapped out. But and there is a fear. There is a fear right now because um the attention has dissipated, and it does feel like we're coming further away, but we have all of this progress being made, not just in the state of New Jersey, but in the whole country. Uh, Organizing is organizing right now, and in a very large way. And so it's really important that we don't go backwards, and that we continue to have these conversations. I think this is a really important thing to be doing, because this is what allows for us to have to share our knowledge. Because if we don't share the knowledge that we have, then it's a disservice to our entire community. So yeah, I think it's very important to make sure that we're chopping in and we're chopping out, but we're also getting people informed and making it digestible. So appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So next question. Measuring success. So what does success look like? What is success for us? Because we're talking about celebrating. What warrants a win? What warrants celebration? By the way, I think that we don't celebrate because we're the most like everything is go 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 go.
Of course,
So,
I was not going to
yeah. So what does success look like?
So there's like two parts to my answer for that, but like measuring success is what you see, right? So I'm going to use Patterson as an example. I'm not the only Muslim elected official. and I'm not the first either, right? There's a big, strong Bengali community in the city of Patterson who I'm going to use them as the best example. They have 2 members of the council that are Bangladesh, and they also have a school board member who's Bangladesh who, fights for their community. So I think measuring success, not necessarily results, but it's what you can see, right? So, I mean, for me, right, and I want to use the Palestinian community, but I really can't because I still struggle to get the Palestinian community to come out and vote, right? Some people, I'm going to use myself as an example. I represent the 6th ward in the city of Patterson. The 6th ward is predominantly Hispanic, right? Now, obviously, Palestinians are there. It is the 2nd largest Palestinian community in the United States. You would think that we all vote, vote, vote. We don't. We don't. So do you measure that as successful? Or do you measure someone as, hey, you have a Palestinian council who's successful? So there's 2 ways to look at it. But back to the Bangladesh community, I measure their success because they're able to galvanize, resonate a message, and get their people out to the polls. And I think it's really important because when you look at it and you say, just like how you said it in Queens or whatever, well, here in the city of Patterson, prior to any of them never running, there was, you just knew they were there. You didn't think that they would be involved in politics or the school board or local activities. Now they are. So measuring success is what you can see, but also who you can go to. That's my answer.
I measure success in numbers. And so, as like Umaima mentioned, getting the numbers of Muslims voting from 580 to 3,000, 6,000, incredible. Uh, and, in Congress, growing the pro-Palestinian bloc, we now have 74 members of Congress who have co-sponsored Block the Bombs. And while I know the entire genocide was so difficult and Congress has been so overwhelmingly disappointing in how they handled it, we did get a historic number of members to vote against the last Israeli supplemental funding, which was, a lot of people don't know, but we got 42 members to vote against Israeli supplemental funding. And that would not have happened 10 years ago. Yeah, yeah. And so while these numbers are sad and it's not enough, while we live in a democracy and we know that we need majorities, those are the majorities and those are the numbers we need to be working towards, getting our people voting in greater numbers in primaries where it matters. And we need the numbers in our school boards, in our town councils, in our legislatures and Congress.
So I think definitely, success will be different to different people, different times, different spaces, and just all throughout history, what success looked different to different, civilizations and major political leaders, et cetera. But I mean, I want to take a little step back and say that, even according to our faith, right, success is your intention, right? Success is you aligning with intention from your Lord and being able to say, I am putting my best foot forward. I'm doing everything with the best of intentions. And, inshallah, I will be delivered success. When I look back on, since January of being on Dr. Hamwi's campaign, I can tell you there were moments where we didn't even want to step foot in certain town halls because we were afraid of certain allegations of terrorism, sort of questions of terrorism. And when you can see, subhanAllah, like, the intention of a human being like himself, who is a God-fearing individual, the intentions of our teams and the people that were around us to really deliver the most pro-human, I heard, Ibrahim saying this, pro-human message of all the candidates. That's what delivered success. Success did not come just because, we are, the ones who had the most money or the most whatever. Success only comes from Allah, and that's something that we as a faith community believe in. And I think we have to really go back to the standards that we've always had. I will tell you that this country needs Islam. Believe it or not, they don't want to admit this, but the only way to fix this country is to really understand the fundamentals of our faith and to organize around that. Our faith believes in, protecting women's rights, protecting the environment, protecting, this is not something that is foreign to any faith-based community, right? However, we're always shunned and told to say, no, this is terrorism, this is embarrassing, look what they're doing to their women, et cetera, et cetera. But if we actually go back to our ideals and understand that truly the way of life that we follow is liberating and is the only way to success, I think we'll be a lot further along than we are. So that's, to me personally, I think that's how I measure success.
I second that. Subhanallah, I had إنه الأعمال بالنيات, which is like that's intentions. Actions are coming from your intentions, of course. I mean, I think everyone mentioned something where if you realize they pinpointed someone that's very pro-humane, very humble, down to earth type of person. Like I don't think these people wouldn't be here if their intentions deep down, Allah put something instilled in them for a reason. Like for example, I want to mention Ilhan Omar. Rashid Tlaib, like these people are truly, I'm pretty sure they started with this from their intention from the beginning, not knowing the title they have, the platform they have, where they come from, the big message that they can relate international wise, because they're speaking more of a federal movement. But when you're putting someone that where it truly is that for them, their actions are higher and more stronger and powerful than words, that is success, regardless of the numbers, regardless of the movement, regardless of you have a platform, you don't have a platform. Truly believe that your values and your beliefs and your faith, if you have it aligned truly with what's right and nothing else, obviously zoning out, that is the truly where we are and how now Muslims are now like the top notch in terms of everything wherever you go.
And then, in terms of success, too, can you speak a little bit more about like the SIC Council and the relationship that you were able to build, and how that opened the door to be able to present?
Yeah. So we had a situation where we were trying to get meetings with the State Investment Council in order for us to divest from Israeli bonds. So the state of New Jersey, as many states, we have, I think, 21.5 million that were in total invested in Israeli bonds at some point. And so it was very critical for us to get a meeting with the State Investment Council. And the only way to do that is to establish a relationship with somebody from within the committee. Unfortunately, it took us months and months until we finally found one sympathetic fellow, Adam Leaptag, who was actually in the committee itself and head of also the ethical committee. And he seemed to comment at the end of one of our hearings in terms of his sympathy towards our group and said, "Hey, we're listening to you guys. Don't think that we're not listening. We're listening." So alhamdulillah, I was able to reach out to him after that hearing, establish a relationship with him. And, he was able to confide in us that they are very much shaken up by our movement. They're very much shaken up by the fact that we want also to divest from Palantir, from all the bonds. And alhamdulillah, I think, showing that we came with like 65 people to testify in a hearing, showing our numbers and how strong we are, I think, inshallah, will continue to deliver success.
And then, since we're getting towards the end of our program, I want to, I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll open it up to the floor. So if anyone has any questions, they can ask our panel. But what is one message? If everyone in this room remembers only one thing from today's conversation, what do you want it to be?
Very simple. Sometimes we might not all agree on everything. That doesn't mean to stop engaging. And your power is your vote. So, I mean, I'm going to go back to, a year ago or so where, it was a presidential election, right? I'm sure a lot of us voted either green or independent, right? Where you might think your vote didn't matter. No, it mattered. It showed. It showed to caucuses, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, that says, hey, we've lost support. And what's the reason why? So my message to all of you is vote, vote, vote. I'll say this. When I knock on doors, I tell everybody, you can call me 365 days a year. And if I can help you, I will. I'm only going to call you 3 times. I'm only going to reach out to you 3 times. And that's either your primary, municipal, or general election. You can have all the feelings you want. You can have all the excitement you want. But the only thing that matters and to get things done is to vote. So all of you, if you know someone who's not registered, register them. If you know someone who doesn't vote, convince him. If you need me to do it, give me a call. I'll bump. One thing that stuck with me when Halima says, "Oh, I'm the most annoying person." Well, if you ask everybody in South Patterson who's the most annoying person on election time, they're going to tell you it's Ibrahim Umar. He doesn't stop calling until you go and vote. And I know because we get updated lists of who went out and voted. So encourage everyone to get involved and get out and vote. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to run for office or phone bank or knock on doors. Get out and vote. That's my message to all of you is get out and vote, no matter what. I don't care if you don't even like them. Write your name in if you have to. That's my message.
My message would be don't give in to the cynicism. A lot of people, will try to suck the energy out of movements. A lot of them are plants by, intelligence operations to kind of fracture our movements. Don't fall for it. You have power. You can organize. We have had these incredible wins. If you opt out of this system, the system will not opt you out. They will still pass policies that impact you, your lives, your loved ones. So don't opt out, stay involved, and don't, just, I don't know, keep working towards something. Don't believe the cynics.
Yeah, I like that. You might have that on the system. But the system doesn't opt out of you. That's real.
I think my one message would be that we need to be proud of who we are. We come from extraordinary cultures that have been around. Our civilizations have been around far, far longer than the 250 years this country has been around for. So we should not be hiding behind our identity. We should be very proud of it. And something like this center, which is PAC, and inshallah, may you always increase your community and always build further. That I love is that you are celebrating your culture. You are proud of who you are. And they always say it's better to be, hated for who you're, or sorry, hated for who you are than loved for what you're not. And I think that's really an instrumental part of community and being part of community. I think that you guys do so well here in PAC is bringing community together and and feeling that part of community. I don't think any of the electoral wins we could have delivered without having community. As I said about the petitions, as I said about the votes, there's no possible way that we would have delivered any win without community. And that's really, really important. It's just believing in yourself and the strength of the community and being proud of who you are. Don't shy away from, the beautiful Arab and Muslim culture that you come from.
I think I do want to say where Halima, you mentioned earlier how you asked a question to Ibrahim about how would you convince or talk to someone being that's frustrated and change that. I think over here it's ask that person, are you actually engaged in the community? Are you actually even involved? So I think I want to leave it as like just get out and start be engaged. Community engagement, involvement, like civically engaged. Like I'm sorry for the people that like to speak up, for the people who like to complain and talk and talk. Like, what are you doing? But you know what? Seriously, they. I'm so serious because I experience it. I hear it. I feel it. I see it. I read it all over types of platforms. But honestly, like they just sit behind the screen. Number one, and number two, like get out and be involved. Hear what's going on. Be the change. Maybe you're the actual next person to take up my, anyone else's position that that we need that movement or whatnot. But I do want to say engagement is huge in community. Not necessarily of course our community, our people, our background, our ethnicity, but also across all, as well, like borders.
Very cool.
Thank you.
No.
And I guess if there's one thing that I would want people to take away, I'll add on to this. I haven't thought about my answer to this, but if there's one thing that I would want everybody to take away from tonight is to keep learning and to keep growing. Be vulnerable. My biggest thing is don't be afraid to be the dumbest person in the room. Like, don't be afraid to not know because being curious is the first step to any road to success, I would say.
Wow.
So really, I think that we need to meet everything with curiosity, to keep learning, and to keep being okay with not knowing everything, because it's in that space that we learn how to also bring others along with us.
And to believe as well, right? So good.
I'll give myself
Oh, that was really good. That was really good.
Okay, so now we're open up to a quick 10-minute Q&A before we close it out for the evening. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Omar?
I feel like most of us in this room are at least progressive to a certain extent. And it's very obvious that we are kind of on the outside of political power, and we have to build these coalitions and these grassroots networks to actually be able to get anything done. So how can we go about that when those networks don't exist in the communities where we come from necessarily?
So I'm going to give you an example from a conversation that me and you had, right? You're a resident of Lodi, right? You've aspired to be in office and you've ran for office, right? So I can answer your question, or I can give you, you can look at it as advice or the answer. Look at it this way. You've knocked on almost every door in your town, right? You've made friendships, you've made relationships, you have their numbers. One thing I learned from a gentleman over here is start group chats. That guy right there, start group chats where you're in a group chat, you're engaged, whether it's WhatsApp, on Facebook, or social media, and whatever, it doesn't matter. But anything, right? Anything, it doesn't matter. But and to continue to engage with those people, because, like you said, you want to build something, right? Well, if you stop engaging, you're not building. You're building barriers and walls instead of knocking them down. So my advice is to continue. Don't stop. I mean, um, I could say, for your stance, you're a smart, young, bright kid who's gonna have a real good future. My advice to you is to create a group chat tonight of your most loyal of the most people who believe in you, right? And then grow from there. Grow from there and continue. Um, I, I'm sure they're gonna answer that question a lot better than me because they've all given better answers. But create a group chat tonight. I'm serious. Create a group chat tonight. No, I'm not as good as Omega, so leave it at that. But definitely start with that. Don't knock down the walls and the barriers, or the ones that you've knocked down already. Continue to knock them down. Don't build another one on top of that.
Awesome.
You don't have to answer.
Um, I would just share kind of one anecdote from when I was knocking on doors in Queens for Alexandria. I didn't knock on doors and say vote for Alexandria. She's the progressive candidate. I knocked on doors and spoke to the issues that people cared about. And so I'd ask them, one example was like, well, the incumbent, what's wrong with him? I was like, well, we're all struggling with rising rents. The incumbent voted for this bill that allowed foreign investment into the city and jacked up our rents. So try Alexandria. And she was like, okay. So it's really about, while we have progressive values and know how that helps people, we have to communicate what those tangible effects are.
It's called indicators. It's like looking around. This is like a trick of the trade. It's look around your surroundings. Always be observing. And when I would knock doors, if there was a book I would recognize on a shelf, if there was a painting, if there was something in the room that spoke to who that person was, that was the thing that I was going after. I remember one of my biggest, I used to fundraise, and one of my biggest checks was as I spoke to a donor about how much I didn't know and was like, I'm the majority. And what we need to build field offices and expand our network. And we need funding to be able to build that network. And this is how we're going to reach people like me who aren't in the algorithm. This is very early on in my career. And this is how you're going to reach people like me and get them to where you are. So it's being aware of your surroundings. And it's like Noreen is saying, it's speaking specifically. Don't come in with a pitch. Come in with a question. Always ask a question first. What is it that matters to that person? And that's why we take notes on every single person, and at what time they go to, if they go to school, if they have kids, if they've been ill. I'll talk to somebody 4 months later and be like, "How's that pipe in your house that burst? Are you still dealing with that issue?" Or, so that's it's listening. It's very much listening. Anyone else want to add?
Anybody else want?
Quickly, so I mean, I think all my understanding, you're saying like our communities are not as connected with other groups.
Like, there's not a pre-established network yet.
Yeah. How do you sound? So I would say we are very fortunate that after October 7th, and a lot of the activists in this room can attest to that, that we were connected so strongly with other groups that I never saw ever come out with us, right? You had the environmental groups come out, you had the Hispanic groups, the immigrant groups come out. I mean, we are so connected now with so many different groups because of things like IRA, because of things like Break the Bonds, so this is the moment, like, strike while it's hot. This is the moment to really engage with these other groups because we do have those relationships now that we never had before. So many, I mean, humanity's standing with us right now. There's no other time in history where so many different groups stood with us as the Muslim community, as the Arab community, and said enough is enough. So definitely, I mean, we can talk later. We can be connected to. So Halima, we're in so many different chats, as they say, that we're working we're working with so many groups already, and alhamdulillah, like those are the groups that are us by ourselves cannot deliver success. We live in this community right now in this society where we have to work with everybody else. And that's been really the success of the Palestinian movement now.
I think with IRA, the question became like, why are you prioritizing this bill?
Mm,
At one point, because I was on a different call, I think it was I was on a call with the League of Women Voters,
mhm,
and it was the VRA. It
mhm.
was the Voting Rights Act. And somebody on that call had mentioned how there was not a single piece of progressive legislation that had passed in the last 2 years. And so the question then became, why are you prioritizing IRA? And why are you not prioritizing other all-encompassing bills like the VRA, like the ITA? And then that's where we were able to get these other groups, I think, more locked in. It's like, hey, why is your bill being pushed off to the side? And why is this one getting a special hearing in the summer?
Mm.
And I think that really galvanized a lot of groups. And then
Yeah.
and then it fully became like a full-blown free speech issue. And then we were intersecting our calls. Like at the center, we were saying, say no to IRA, but say yes to the ITA, say yes to the VRA. There are so many things for you to say yes to and pick a different bill. So I think that that's the part of the awareness and the being observant as well. Is there's always something that there's always a nugget somewhere that somebody will give you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have Anthony, you had your hand up. You want to answer your question? Can you pass it? I will so much. Bye bye.
Thanks. So relatedly, what do you have it? What advice do you have on coalition building and like where and like, because like one thing that I've seen is a lot like some like disagreement on like sometimes there's like disagreement on like who to partner with and like and such like that.
Can I kick that one off?
Yeah.
I think for coalition building, I think that the most important thing is, and this might not be everybody's take on this, but it's what is the issue that you're centering yourself around? Because I think that sometimes where people get stuck is maybe we don't align on every issue, so we feel like we can't work with that organization or that group of or that group of people because they haven't passed this impossible purity test where we're the only ones that are judging. But it's what is the issue at hand that you are fighting for, and do you align on that issue, and can you fight together for that? Because I think that and then you pick and choose. Maybe you're not in every space with that organization, but will you sign on to the same letter? Sure. Will you speak in the same meeting? Sure. But does that mean that you have to work together on everything? No. But when on the issue at hand, work with the people who align with you on that issue. That's my take on that for coalition building. I don't know if that helps.
Well, I'll add on to that too. So, let's just take something as simple as the environmental thing, right? There's already whether we think it or not. I always say this, like I think I have a good idea. I always say, well, someone else thought of that before me. Someone definitely had thought about that before me. So your fight might be someone else's fight. You just have to find it. Um, I think for our community, we're fortunate to have, organizations like the Palestinian American Community Center or CARE or ICPC or whatever, where we almost share that same agenda. So whatever you're looking to fight against, believe me, there's a coalition out there for it. You might not even have to look hard to find it. So, and then from there you can connect with them and like, look, I just mentioned 3 different organizations. They all do something different, but they all share the same common goal. So it's there. You just have to look for it. If anybody else wants to add on to that.
If I'm looking at my phone, I'm taking notes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Does anyone else have a question?
What is your how are you approaching like AI, especially with like on data centers, but also like surveillance and volunteer, which is
So I'm
Um,
not too fluent about artificial
So-
intelligence.
With Palantir, I think that you mentioned Palantir, how we dealing with AI and surveillance, and I think that one of the ways that we're dealing with surveillance is we lean on organizations who specialize in how to secure your information. So there are organizations that put on training for organizations such as PAC that help us secure our data. There are different platforms that we use that we switch into, and then there is, and then as for Palantir, this is a plug. Go in the back, scan that QR code. We have a divestment campaign that we're currently working on to stop our funding from Palantir. Every movement, I think, impact is creating damage. It's either damaging money or damaging reputation. So right now we're trying to do both with Palantir because it needs to be done. So that's that. The addressing the Palantir issue. There's a QR code in the back, and yeah, I would say. Find the organizations who are the professionals with security and have them help your organization.
And I will say that dovetails nicely with the other question around building coalitions because the AI and Palantir issue is so cross-sectional. There are so many people who are passionate about defeating it, whether it's environmental groups, whether it's immigrant rights groups who are, affected by Palantir targeting immigrant communities, whether it's pro-Palestinian folks who oppose to Palantir's involvement in the genocide, whether it's libertarians, some Republicans who oppose surveillance of this level. So this is an issue, and this is why we're seeing New Jerseyans be so successful in defeating data centers across the state, is because this is something that impacts so many communities, and all these different groups are working together despite their differences to defeat this.
Absolutely.
I just want to thank all of you guys for what you guys doing. It's really this you guys are the hope for our community and the light at the end of the tunnel. We wish you all success, and we hope that you keep doing what you're doing. And the most important thing that we need to do also is to support PAC and support all the organizations that we have for what they're doing. Yeah, for what they're doing, whether it's ICPC, all the other organizations that we have, CARE, and all the other ones that we have. Thank you guys for what you're doing.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yes, please support us. We love support. Support looks like volunteering. Support looks like coming to our events and being in community. Support looks like contributing to our museum we're building. Support looks like bringing others into the room and into the space. So please, yes, continue to support us and help us grow this space because I have to say it is very special. So
And I do want to second that because it's called the Palestinian American Community Center, but it doesn't only service Palestinians.
no, it does not.
There are people from from where I represent that bring their kids here for the cooking classes that they do, or the DEPCA classes, and the Arab culture classes. There's so many things that the Palestinian American Community Center does. So we definitely do appreciate you. Me personally, I can tell you my run to political office, almost started here. Not that they supported me, no, but my point is,
We are a 501c3.
I'm going to make it very clear they're a 501c, but we definitely appreciate the PAC, and it's organizations like the PAC grow like panels, like we're panelists today, but at the end of the day, I'm a public servant, you're a public servant, you're a public servant, and it's because of the Palestinian American Community Center we're able to engage and continue to, like you said, I hope to see I'm proud to say I'm the second Palestinian American. My predecessor would say, he's the first and he hopes he's not the last. And I echo that same thing. I'm the second. I hope I'm not the last. And
I talked to her a lot. I talked to the app. I hope that they would open more packs in different.
I hope so.
Inshallah.
Hopefully outside the state county as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe
Love
down
it.
South Jersey.
Yeah. I think that's a dream. Yeah, I think that the community center is a very special place. So we'd love to see more of it exist, and we're gonna need staff for that. So again, if you're parents, we have 2 internship programs here at PAC where I would love to get your kids ready to help fill some of these shoes. And with that, I'll make my closing remarks. As we conclude tonight's conversation, I want to thank all of our panelists for sharing not only your victories, but also your lessons, your sacrifices, and persistence behind all of our victories. So thank you. Thank you so much. And please join me in giving a round of applause to Ibrahim Omar, Arwa Ansor, Nurdin Akhtar, and Omima Mansour. Tonight's discussion reminds